Love, lots of love to everyone, lots of love.
Same to you.
Okay, तो अभी थोड़ी देर है ना, अभी मैं पीपीटी को देखती हूँ. If I can do the slide share, ठीक है?
Ma'am, with your permission, can we start with yesterday's reporting?
Yeah. तब तक हम इसको पीपीटी को वो कर दे. हाँ. You will start now. It's 11.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Monica.
Madam Pranam.
खुश रहो चंदन.
Hello and good morning to one and all present here. I am Monica Talani, research scholar from Govt Digvijay PG Autonomous College, Rajnandgaon. And on behalf of my organizing team and college family, I heartily welcome all the dignitaries, guests, and research scholars in the 4th day of 5-day national level virtual workshop titled Basics of Research Methodology, organized by Department of English and IQAC with a joint collaboration of Govt Digvijay Autonomous PG College and Indira Kala Sangeet Vishwavidyalaya, Khairgarh. Now, before we jump into today's session, I would like to highlight a glimpse of yesterday's session. It was the 3rd day of our workshop in which we had 2 sessions. The first session was covered by Dr. Madhu Kamra, Head Professor of English, Durga Mahavidyalaya, Raipur. The subject of her talk was Research in Folk or Comparative Literature, Some New Avenues. Ma'am has excellently explained the meaning, purposes, and demand for comparative or folk literature in present scenario with the help of examples and definitions. One such definition she mentioned was that comparative literature is the study of relationships between 2 or more languages. In simplified words, we can say that she said that comparative literature focuses on 2 literary texts where compared texts could be similar or dissimilar in nature. She also touched the field of studies, namely French school, Russian school, and American school, and also talked about broad areas of cultural studies. For the second session, we had with us Dr. Anil Kumar, Professor, Department of Biotechnology, Zoology, Govt VYT PG College, Durg, Chhattisgarh. The topic of his talk was Resources of Funding for Researchers. Now, as the name suggests, Sir told us about major funding agencies for research in India and outside as well. As per his findings, we have 225 researchers per million population, whereas 1250 in Israel, still very less in number in India. Sir also told us about some important funding agencies in different subjects, like for science, we have DST, Department of Science and Technology, CSIR, UGC, and others. Likewise, for arts and commerce, we have Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, MOW, Department of Education, and others. Now let's begin with today's session. We are privileged to welcome 2 eminent speakers and our guest of honor, Dr. Savita Singh, Professor of English, Govt Nagarjun Science College, Raipur, and Dr. P.N. Sanisar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Govt Autonomous PG College, Chhindwara. They both have been gracious enough to join us this morning. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. The topic for the first session is Application of Theories in Literary Research, which will be dealt by Dr. Savita Singh, ma'am. I think the session is going to be so beneficial and relevant to all the researchers and academicians because application of theories in literary research give researchers different lenses to look upon a problem, focus on different aspects of data, and eventually provides a framework to conduct their analysis. So without further delay, I would like to request Ms. Aishwarya to formally welcome Dr. Savita Singh, ma'am. Over to you, Aishwarya.
Good morning, one and all present here. Good morning, ma'am, and all the dignitaries. I'm Aishwarya Srivastava from MA 4th semester, Digvijay College. And I'd love to invite Dr. Savita ma'am for this lovely session. Dr. Savita Singh ma'am, Department of English, GNPG College of Science, Raipur CG, also GNPG College of Science, Raipur, Chhattisgarh. She holds an experience of 27 years of teaching at UG and PG level MPhil for 20 years and guided more than 50 MPhil dissertations. She has also coordinated 3 refresher courses for Pandit Ravi Shankar University, Raipur. Besides this, she published about 30 papers and was the author of 3 books and co-author of 2 books. And one of the famous book is Inside Lives also. Hello. So, भाई मेरा network ही चला. Hello.
Aishwarya, you're audible, beta.
Aishwarya, continue, beta. We can hear you.
Sorry for the glitches. I guess there are some technical errors from her end. So now I would like to request Dr. Savita ma'am to please continue with her lecture. We are eagerly waiting.
Thank you. Thank you, Neelu, ma'am, Neelu Shrivastava, Anita Shankar, Chandan, Anita, Manjari, all of you, the entire faculty, Manjula, the entire faculty of Digvijay College for giving me this opportunity. I have a very, very close affinity with your college, which is actually well known by all. So I'm here and I can never ever refuse when Digvijay College asks me to do something. So, and thank you so much, all of you, for inviting me, giving me this opportunity. Just give me a moment so that I can start the slide share.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
And I also record my thanks to your principal, Tandikar sir, and all the faculty of Digvijay College, all of you, and all the public of Rajnandgaon. Am I audible? And can you see the screen?
Yes.
I'm audible also?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, you are audible, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so I'll be basically talking about a number of theories. So a brief introduction to a number of theories, because the last point of your concept note was isms. So I'll be talking about a number of isms in short and talk about the key thinkers and what were the ideas and how they used their theories to understand or evaluate texts. So that was going to be my topic today. So topic is brief introduction to literary theories with this, okay? Next. Okay. Okay, so in the overview, basically I'll be talking about literary theories, major areas, key thinkers, focus area, and application. So this is what I'm going to be dealing with. So literary theory and criticism. Now, basically, I take it that most of the participants here are research scholars and young faculty. So the difference between literary theory and criticism. Now, when we talk of literary theory, it is a philosophical discussion of literature's goals and various methods that can be used in the analysis and interpretation of literature. So the theory becomes what is the goal, what are the methods that can be used. And then when we talk about literary criticism, what is it? It is the study, evaluation, and interpretation. You make a deep study of it, you evaluate it, and you interpret, bringing out the n number of meanings that are there in a text of literature. It is an application of literary theories to particular works to understand the meanings of a text. Okay, so this is the two difference between literary theory and criticism. See, most of my slides will be with lots of information on them, so that even those who are new to the field can read and hear me at the same time. Because I am a great this thing of text-based learning, because English is a second language, and if you have the text in front of you and you're listening to it at the same time, you will be able to understand me better. So therefore, there's lots and lots of text in this presentation. Yeah. So this is the difference between literary theory and criticism. Now we have this broad concept of what is literature, and the term that has been always used is liberal humanism. So it talks about okay. So attitude, literature is timeless. That is the attitude. I hope you can see me and hear me also. See the presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Completely.
Can you see me also? I don't know.
Yes, we can see you as well, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Both the screen.
And I'm audible also. Okay, thank you. So literature is timeless. These are some of these beliefs that are there with literature and have always been there with literature. That literature is timeless, and each literary text has got its own meaning. And then close verbal analysis will take us to the meaning of what is written in the text. Then another concept that is repeated and just sort of taken for granted is that human nature basically does not change. Times change, places change, but basic human nature remains the same. Of course, at different times, different critics have even challenged these concepts. But then this it's a ground base that we take for granted. Literature spreads human values. Let me tell you all over here that the first conference that the Chhattisgarh English Teachers Association had organized in 2000, the concept note had been decided by, and the topic had been decided by my guide, Dr. J. Srihari Rao, and the topic was Crisis in Human Values and Indian Writing in English. So that was in 2000, way back, 22 years back, when we had organized the first conference. So human values become very, very important when we talk about literature. Then organic fusion of content and form. What is the meaning of organic? Organic, that is something that grows from within. So the content or whatever the work is about and the form that it takes, both of these together are fused together. So it has to be organic. You cannot have a system where the content is separate and the form is separate. The form has to complement the content, and the content has to be complementing the form. Then truthful experience enacted through literature, showing silently is valued. Whenever we talk about literature, we say that show, don't tell. These are in Wayne C. Booth talks about in the rhetoric of fiction, that show, don't tell. So showing silently, literature with all the wonderful figures of speech and devices can show silently. So what I'm just reminded of Shelley. Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. So that is a silent expression. And a silent expression adds a wealth of meaning to literature. empirical reading of literature. Empirical in the sense that you have to experience. The reading of literature has to be experienced. Some ideas on theory, certain things again, that most idea or a given is something that we take for granted, that most ideas are fluid and unstable, because at every age things and interpretations keep on changing. So fluid and unstable, they keep on changing, they are contingent and not absolute. And the thought of whether it is a writer or whether it is a reader, it is affected always by prior knowledge, whatever we know from before and our own perspective. So whenever we are doing research, whenever we talk about research, we always say that yes, you have to go back, you have to do a sort of literature review, you have to try to think what is the prior knowledge on this particular aspect that is going to be studied. So what is literature review? Basically, you are trying to go back on the prior knowledge. So whenever we read a piece of literature, the prior knowledge and our own personal perspective, these two things always are there when you are reading a text with an attempt to analyze it and interpret it. The meanings of language constructs and shapes, records, creates reality. Whatever is the reality, language is constructing it. And the reader and writer jointly. Reader and writer jointly means whatever is written by the writer has to play itself out in the mind and the experience of the reader. And therefore, together, a piece is constructed. And therefore, we always talk about the different theories. You say that certain theories are author-centric, others are text-centric, and others are reader-centric. So you have got these three types, that text or theories that give lots and lots of importance on the author, his background, what everything about him, the historical period and all those things that must have framed his imagination or his consciousness. So that, and then you have the text or the work of art, which later on, of course, art for art's sake, that this particular work of art, when you're studying a work of art, you need not to actually worry about what else has gone into the mind of the author. So then we have certain theories that focus only on the work, and then you have theories that focus on the reader. So author-centric, text-centric, and reader-centric. The meanings of literary texts are always shifting, multifaceted, and ambiguous. So, ambiguity has got its own delights. Ambiguity has got its own delights because each work is an independent existence, and each reader brings to it a different meaning. And therefore, the number of meanings just pile up. And therefore, we've seen that, canonical literature or literature that has stood the test of time, even something written in the 17th century, 4th century, 5th century, it has relevance. And we can enjoy literature even if they are so very, very old, because it has got this existence and this ambiguity, and meanings keep on shifting. The distrust of totalizing ideas of humanity, that certain ideas of humanity that we're talking about, class or race or gender, no, they cannot be totalized. All conflicts that are normally there in literature are based on race, class, and gender. Then you have the Eurocentric and the Androcentric. That most of the views, when we're studying English literature, most of the views are Eurocentric because the base was England and France, the main areas where you have all the thinkers, and therefore Eurocentric, and Androcentric, that is patriarchal, or like ignoring the female, or the gynocentric. So androcentric. The Eurocentric and or androcentric are most of the ideas and theories. Of course, they have all been challenged at different times. So in a nutshell, politics is there everywhere. Language keeps on constituting and changing. Truth is provisional, it keeps changing. Mean is again contingent, changes, and human nature is a myth. So certain these are certain talks. Now, when we talk about the origins, we go back, and most of you who have done your MA and are doing research now, you all know about Aristotle politics, and you know about it. Philip Sidney, Johnson, all these authors, Longinus, and others that you've done. In the 18th century, with Wordsworth's preface to the lyrical balance, but he brought in completely romanticism or romantic poetry. And then you have Coleridge, because we all know that all these romantic poets were sort of working together. Fancy and imagination, you've done that. Then Shelley, a defense of poetry, which defamiliarization, an idea that came in much later with the formalists, was already there in Shelley. So when you're talking about imagination and you're talking about romantic dealings with nature, most of the ideas that were discussed in the 20th and 21st century are being discussed and, were developed on, had the root somewhere way back in the 18th century. And Matthew Arnold, and then Keats, of course, talks about silent working of the mind. And we all know that later on, we are talking about the conscious and the unconscious. We're talking about negative capability. Eliot talking about negative capability, but the work is already there. The silent working of the mind that had been suggested way back by Keats. Matthew Arnold, the functional criticism in the present times and the study of poetry. We all know about the Tusher method. And the object as in itself, it really is. And then we're talking about clues. So these are just the origins. Then this is a sort of timeline, Russian formula. These are the areas that will be basically covering the 20th century. So archetypal, new criticism, and different forms of this. 70s, you have anxiety of influence, deconstruction, discourse, reader response, all these things. This is just a timeline. So this is just a timeline. I'm going to just, and of course, most of these overlap. Because ideas were being discussed and thinkers had their own students who were developing the ideas. Then let us begin with formalism, because I'll be sort of covering quite a number of topics. So we're beginning with formalism. Now formalism, dear students, when we talk about formalism, as the word suggests, we're talking about form. You're talking about form. What is form of a work of art? And therefore, the form of the work of art was the main concern of the formalists. And formalism has its roots in Russian formalism. You had different schools, Petersburg scholars, and later on the Chicago and other schools had come up. So, poetic devices. What do you understand by poetic devices or figures of speech? Like most of you are familiar with the figures of speech, you like when we talk about allusion, personification, euphemism, and then all those that are so much rooted in language, alliteration, assonance, onomatopoeia, all these devices that make a particular work of art wonderful. So the figures of speech. And therefore these thinkers, they said that language is used by all, but the literary language is different because it uses language in a different manner and because it has got these poetic devices. Understand? And therefore literariness, this word was coined, the literariness of a so literariness means the literary language. That language you have, legal language, and you have language, have you so many different registers are there, different languages used by, lawyers and medical this thing, and commonly used language by the common people. All those things are there. But literariness, when Roman Jacobson spoke of it, he was talking about the devices that are used to make a work of art. So in formalism, what a formalist critic will do, that he will not be actually trying to go back on the, trying to understand that who is the author and like what background did he come from, And what was the historical perspective? No, they need not go back, because this formalism is absolutely text-centric. So it being text-centric, the words on the page are the most important, the form of the work. And initially I said that the form and the content, how they have to complement each other. How the form is being used by the author. So you're not thinking about the author, the work of art as it is, and you're not worried about this. So you're talking about the formalism. Now, Stravinsky also spoke about estrange and defamiliarize. Now, these two words, basically estrange or defamiliarize, ka matlab, it means that whatever an artist or a writer or a poet is writing about, he is writing about things that I and you and all the common people, we also have seen, we know. But the language that is used defamiliarizes. So the meaning of defamiliarizing or defamiliarization is presenting ordinary, everyday, mundane things or existence in a very unique manner, so that it seems strange and beautiful. And therefore, Stravinsky speaks about this, and in one very famous Art as Technique, in a very famous essay by Stravinsky, Art as Technique, he talks about the very common this thing of whipping. But the way he puts in the whipping, it is so painful. It was something that was seen by people every day. But the way he presents it becomes very, very different. And also the change of perspective. Sometimes the change of perspective, that you are used to listening to a human being's point of view. A piece of work that talks about maybe a horse's point of view, or a flower's point of view, or a cat's point of view for that matter. So that is again defamiliarizing. You're putting yourself. So defamiliarizing or estrange, defamiliarization. So these two words were there. So what do formalist critics basically do? They attempt to trace out. Now, most of these slides, you have something in blue at the bottom. So that is how and what these critics, how do they use it in application? How the theory is applied in a text when literary research is being carried out. So critics attempt to trace out the devices used in a text. So what are the devices? What is the onomatopoeia? Is there pastiche or parody? And there's so many n number of devices which enhance or make a work much more beautiful. Like we have all been, you have done lots of poetry, and we have done, so many ideas, and we know about the figures of speech and poetic devices. Now, the new critics and formalists, they were all roughly the same timeline. We're talking about new criticism. So these were the main key thinkers. So you've got Eliot, tradition, and individual talent. Now, tradition and individual talent basically talks about going back to traditions, that how the tradition is so important. And so we are going back to the touchstone method, that any work of art can be evaluated or understood by putting it up against a work of an artist of a canonical literature, or a great figure from the past, from literature, from tradition, and the individual talent. Both these things Eliot has discussed wonderfully in this essay. And then the dissociation of sensibility, impersonality. That because these new critics were basically talking a lot about objective criticism, because they're talking about form. They're talking about form, and they're not worried about the author and all that. And therefore, this practical criticism, objective criticism, impersonality. And then he uses the word objective correlative. Now, we all know that objective correlative basically means that what are the different objects that a writer uses which can correlate and bring out the theme or the content of the work. And impersonal, that when one is reading or writing, impersonality has to be there. They were critical of subjectivity. They were focusing on object. Now we have the 7 types of ambiguities. In that also, how a particular verb, a particular noun, a particular adverb is used in so many different ways. So the 7 types of ambiguities covers those. And all of these become therefore devices that you need not actually think about what the author was thinking. But these ambiguities are adding meaning to the text. Lewis, and then you have this work of Northrop Frye, and these were other thinkers, Ransom, I. Richards, Eliot, Brooks, and these thinkers and whatever their ideas, whatever they stood for, is very relevant and followed a lot by research even today. In research, we follow these ideas that were brought out by them. And they are all excellent essays, excellent essays that argue very, the dialogue or a discourse is going on, and they manage to bring forth their meaning. So, new criticism basically is objective. That is the words on the page. Literature is verbal, spatial, close reading, and explication is bringing out the meaning with no distinction between genres. Like you cannot say that alliteration can be used only in poetry, alliteration can be used in drama, it can be used in this thing. So all these genres fall back on the same poetic devices. So one need not divide, because when we're talking about classical, everyone can connect to the myths of a particular place. That way, we in India can just connect to the epics and to all the aspects of any epic. We can just trace it out anywhere, whether it is a song, whether it is an image, whether it's a painting, everywhere. So that is somewhere collective unconscious of the human. This phrase was given by Young. The Northrop Frye again spoke about self-contained literary universe, that the literary universe is within itself. It is complete within itself, the literary universe, because the writer carries within himself and the reader carries within himself elemental patterns that are already there in his psyche. Somewhere or the other, it is already there. And therefore, the work of literature resonates. It resonates, it becomes beautiful. Lots of meaning is added to it. Because of the resonances. Then he spoke about plots as season. Like most of the festivals that you have, or even when we're talking about Chhattisgarh, we're talking about the different festivals, the different songs. We live in a tribal region, so different tribes and different, the stones that will be kept, certain rituals with sticks or animals and motifs that are all there. So myths and rituals and dreams. Now, of course, the psychoanalytic critics focus a lot on dreams, but the dreams, when one cannot understand that from where has this dream come, when even a psychoanalyst, fails to understand, the dreams come from that collective unconscious. Okay. And in our myths and all, we have got all these stories about people who could just see. You had Sanjay, who could see and relate to Dhritarashtra, all that was happening in Kurukshetra, on the battlefield, Kurukshetra, Mahabharata. He could just relate. And then you have so many words. One of my students has recently done a work on retelling of myths. And she focused on Devdutt Patnaik and Amish Tripathi and Anand Neelkantan, all talking about different areas. About Sita. Sita, we know that has been again and again reinterpreted and written. Because we were not there when Sita was there, no? But it is there in our collective consciousness. We just know. And many things that we know have got the same parallels in other cultures also. So patterns shared with religion, philosophy, and the social norms. So these patterns are there in religion. And of course, as we all know, that religion marks the most ancient forms of worship, are the closest to the human race. And therefore, religion and philosophy and social norms, certain patterns that are shared by all. So these, what do archetypal critics do? They trace out the elemental patterns in a text. So they'll pick up a text and they will trace out the elemental patterns. They'll take up one pattern, maybe seasons, maybe plants, maybe a particular animal, or maybe a particular, god and his entire background and how it operates in different ways. So an archetypal critic will be falling back on Fraser and Young and all the cultural, religious and philosophical backgrounds of an age, of different ages, because they all are sort of, acting together, reverberating together in a text. And so we come to psychoanalytic criticism. I've tried to cover many of them, but not all these. So psychoanalytic. Now in psychoanalytic criticism, we all know that the main key figures are Freud and Lacan. So here you have what is Freud about and what does a Freudian critic do, and Lacan and what a Lacanian critic does. So Freud, we all know that he's basically the main concepts and ideas that were brought about by psychoanalysis, because we know about his psychoanalysis, and there's a wonderful movie also. Recently I saw a movie on Netflix. It is based on the life of Freud. I'm forgetting the name of the movie. I think it was maybe Freud only, I don't remember. But how he tries to go into the unconscious and all that. So id, ego and superego. For students, let me tell you that id is, what is id? Id is the libido, or the most basic instincts, the most basic physical instincts of a human being. That is the id. And the superego is something that is, tries to, show that this is the perfect, this is the best, this is what it should be like. And therefore, on one side, you have idealistic reality, and on the other side, you have the basic instincts. And the ego, what does the ego do? It tries to balance between the id and the superego. And that makes a balance between the superego. These three words have also, by other critics, said that id is the unconscious, because it is unconsciously there in the birth of as a child is born, whatever. Id is the unconscious. The ego is the conscious, because consciously it's trying to balance the id and the superego. And the superego is the conscience. So you have the unconscious, that is id. You have the ego, that is the conscious, consciously trying to balance everything. And the superego, that, is thinking of elevated thought. And therefore it is the conscience. Okay. So this conflict between the id, ego and superego is there in all human beings and has can be seen in literature. And then he spoke about unconscious. So this first time he was talking about the unconscious. People were not really discussing unconscious at the time. So you have the unconscious, that is something that is going to dictate. Then you have repression. Now, why repression takes place? Because the superego says that these certain things must not be expressed. They are, they should be banned, they should be banned, they should not be expressed. And therefore, things are repressed and repressed into the unconscious, but in certain different ways, they sometimes come up. Then you have the Oedipus and Electra complexes. You have heard a lot about Oedipus and Electra complexes. The Oedipus is the love of the son for the father, for the mother, and the opposite with the Electra complexes. And we know that when in the work, Freud, when he wrote his work, elemental work, Interpretation of Dreams, he has analyzed Hamlet. We all know about Hamlet, we all know about how he was hesitating, he was hesitating. He could easily have gone and killed Claudius, because he had killed his father and got married to his mother. But then he hesitates. So as a psychoanalytic critic, Freud gave a very simple answer, that he could not kill him. He could not punish him, because somewhere deep within himself, his love for his mother had made him feel that he could have killed his father. So therefore, how could he punish someone for a sin that he had already during his childhood or youth already in his mind? So the love for the mother. So this, in simple terms, is argued out by Freud when he analyzes Hamlet. Okay, in the even talking about the Oedipus complex and why it could not happen, why he was hesitating. So this, because he could identify the deep need that he himself could have killed his father because he loved his mother so much. So this is it is a wonderful section, in the interpretation of dreams. Then you talk about the libido is again the basic section, and then he talks about eros and thanatos. Now eros is the wish for life. Eros is a wish for life, and thanatos is death. So eros and thanatos, these two, realities that are very, very important and prominent in human beings' life. So these two things also he spoke about, eros and thanatos. Then he spoke about transference, how, or many defense mechanisms he called them. Defense mechanisms in the sense that the ego tries to protect itself from all that is unpleasant. Whatever is unpleasant, it has one a human being, whoever it is, has to protect himself from it. And so unpleasant things, how do you protect? Either you transfer it, or it is complete denial of it, or complete repression of it. Complete repression. Sometimes denial, that that you have got a particular weakness. So he gives an example, Freud gives an example of a smoker. So he'll say the smoker says that, no, I don't smoke. So he keeps on smoking. So he tries to repress or completely go into denial that I do not do this. And by going into denial, so it becomes a mental illness. And by going into denial, he is able to face this harsh or unacceptable reality of himself. Okay. So, and then projection, and then slips, talks about the slips. So, it's a very commonly you use the word Freudian slip, the Freudian slip, that certain actions, certain thoughts that just happen, and you cannot understand that how come it happened. Like you go to the fridge and you open the fridge and it just slips your mind, you do not know. You go in for a glass of water and you instead bring out some vegetables. Certain things that just happen, that the slips that are taking place, because somewhere deep in the unconscious something is operating and causing this. So you open a chocolate and you throw the chocolate in the dustbin and you eat the wrapper. So this is a slip that has just happened. Now, how did it happen? Why did it happen? So the answer is in the deep, in the unconscious, which we cannot really understand or analyze. Then he spoke about dream work, he talked about symbolism and substitution. Even symbolism, that anything that becomes a symbol, that sometimes somebody who's deprived of a particular thing, so he looks for it symbolically and accepts it. Or substitution, displacement, and condensation. So these are many of these terms, defense mechanism that. So what does a Freudian critic do? He looks for the covert beneath the overt. Overt means that which is openly written in a particular text. So the critic will read the overt, whatever is overt, he'll read it out, that okay, this is this. But he will try to see that what is hidden under it, what is hidden beneath it. So looking for the hidden beneath that which is expressed in a particular text. Okay. And then you have the motives. And then, of course, Freudian critics went into these three levels, that what is the motive of the author in writing this work? What are the motives and motivations or inspirations for action of the character that has been created? And how does a particular work resonate in the mind and heart of the reader? So they went as far as to say that Shakespeare when he wrote Hamlet, he had lost his a child, Hamnet. His name I think was Hamnet. I'm forgetting, but then so it was the author who brought out his own insecurities, his own Oedipus complex in the work Hamlet. And all those who read it, if they understand it, and he goes on to claim that this Oedipus complex is so deep rooted that many times that is sort of contributing to the popularity of Hamlet. So covert and overt, what is the motive of the author and his characters, and what is the motive of the readers in reading? So as a psychoanalytic critic will try to bring it out also from the reader's point of view, from the characters, from the author's point of view. Then identify the Freudian symptoms. So ego, superego, unconscious, tracing out the unconscious, tracing out the heroes and thanators. So one of my students had done her work in the psychoanalytic study of Golding's works, William Golding, Lord of Flies and all those works. And in that, what had we done is that traced out a different, so in different works, in one work, forgetting the name of the novel, there was a character, he was always very ugly, and he had the death wish, and his friend had the life wish. So heroes and thanatos were traced out in one work. Then you trace out ego, superego, analyzing the characters and what were the motivations in the text. So it was a close textual analysis trying to bring out these Freudian concepts in the work through both character and theme. Okay, so it can be done like that. This is how a Freudian concept, this is how a theory or an idea can be applied to a particular text. Then you have Lacan. So Lacan is famous for his seminars. Most of his works were in the form of seminars, and which were written down much later. And he spoke that the unconscious, famous dialogue is unconscious is structured like a language. And he spoke of condensation, metonymy, and displacement metaphor. And famously, so metonymy and metaphor, that how displacement is also spoken about by Freud. Also displacement, that metaphorically how things change, what one thing might stand for another. And therefore you have for metonymy and metaphor, you have the paradigmatic shift, and in metonymy you have the syntagmatic shift. Syntagmatic and paradigmatic. And his famous quote was, "I am where I think not." So what was he talking about? Lacan was talking about, he overturned the idea of Descartes. Descartes had claimed, "I think, therefore I am." So he was talking about think, conscious. But Lacan says, "I am where I think not." So he's talking about the unconscious. And he goes on to say in very, very wonderful tones, he says that who is this person residing within me, who wags me and makes me do things? So I think, where I do not think, I am there. So he laid lots and lots of this thing on the unconscious. Understand, on the unconscious, and therefore this I am where I think not. So selfhood, conscious selfhood. But what is the self? It is that which is for Lacan where I am not there. I do not know. It is the unconscious. And he says it wags me. It wags me. Then you have him, and he spoke about these two basically. This thing, like from the 6 to 18 months, he called the mirror stage, when the child first of all understands and looks at himself, and then the symbolic stage. The symbolic, when he sees the father, and the socialization process begins after 18 months. So the mirror stage and the symbolic, or the socialization, and the figure of the father. And then therefore, the patriarchal society, what society, socialization process begins. So these are the mainly key ideas of Lacan. Then Lacanian critics also, therefore, what do they do? I think I'll have to hurry up. Search for hidden meanings, deconstruct, identify Lacanian phases, lack and desire. And of course, when you're talking about father, he goes on to talk about, penis envy and all those things, that how women are envious or jealous of males and what they desire. All those things are analyzed by Lacan. And what would the critics do? They trace these out, and also text represents the concept of language and the unconscious, because he has famously said that the unconscious is like a language, structured like a language, and therefore whatever is signified, it might keep on changing. It is elusive. That, I think, the very famous essays, that the arbitrary nature of the sign, how it keeps on changing. So this is about psychoanalysis. Basically, these two schools are there, Freud and Lacan. Of course, Lacan was brought into with lots of criticism and reassessment and recycling of his orders, of his thoughts and ideas by the feminist critics later on. Now we talk about Marxist criticism. This is again something very, very important, and it is relevant, and it will always be relevant. We all know that about Karl Marx. It comes from him. So he was tired of the czars and the capitalistic structure of Russia, and he wrote the Communist Manifesto. Karl Marx, the Communist Manifesto. So in the Communist Manifesto, of course, the state will become the owner. He overturned capitalism. Basically, it was a completely different ideology. So, and therefore, ideology, superstructure, and socioeconomic system as the base. Now, what Marxist critics argue is that any structure of society, the political, social, economic, any structure of society basically depends on the factors of production, economic base. Therefore, socioeconomic system is the base that will decide. So what are the factors of production? It is land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. So one who has got land can employ labor, he's got the capital, and therefore he will be the dominant class. And the others who are working under him will be the oppressed. And therefore here comes the class distinction. Marxists are also, Karl Marx has said that all the conflicts in history have been conflicts of class. But the critics go on to say that any ideology, so Marxist criticism, the word ideology becomes very, very important. So what is ideology? It is a particular set of ideas and things, ideas that you have that will be making ideology. So they said that ideology covertly means that you are not aware of, legitimizes and maintains the power of the ruling class. So you're talking about power, you're talking about dominance. So it legitimizes because they are the ruling class. Whoever is the ruling class, whoever is the dominant class, we know initial days what was happening, what is happening today. In all societies, you have a dominant class and you have the suppressed or the lower class. Okay, but ideology is legitimizes, meaning to say that it makes legitimate or correct whatever are the beliefs of the dominant ruling class. So he was criticizing this, and these thinkers, they argue that because it is made legitimate, it works in a hidden manner so that the power of the ruling class should continue. They should not lose their power. So how the entire power machinery or the socio-economic, political ideology and things that are happening in a particular place, in a particular moment of time, they try to maintain the dominance of the ruling class, because the ruling class has got the power to legitimize whatever they say and to make it sound that this is it, and make the common people believe that, yes, this is it, yahi sahi hai. And therefore, in a particular age, in a particular time, a particular view that is endorsed by the dominant class becomes the view of the masses. And therefore, they use this word, this interpellation. The word interpellation means that the groups of people are hailed, they interpellate, they are hailed by different ideologies, and they naturally go and coalesce and get together with groups that they feel are close to what they are thinking about, and therefore that is the way the society will be breaking up. So this is something that we see every day, that a certain viewpoint will be there, propagated, and it will be propagated, and half the people unconsciously will start following that area, not trying to really understand that are they being consciously, cleverly being made to think in a particular manner. So these things, the power of the ruling class. So ideology ke naam pe, the ruling class maintains its power and makes the common people believe that whatever they are saying is correct, it is legitimate. Okay, so this, and then of course, dehumanizing institutions of capital, yes, and Gramsci's hegemony. Hegemony also basically means the same thing. When you're talking about the hegemony, he used the word cultural hegemony. That whatever is the dominant class, whatever they think becomes the norm. It becomes the norm, and it is so expressed. It is expressed in such a way that the common people feel that yes, it is for our good. They are led covertly into believing that whatever is said by the ruling class or the dominant class is that which is good for them. That which is good for them. And therefore, cultural. Therefore, this thing of culture comes in. The culture, because the culture is that which connects people deeply. Therefore, he used the word cultural hegemony. Okay? And with culture, of course, always the word religion is connected. And we all know that Karl Marx had famously said, religion is the opium of the people. Nasha. It is the opium of the people. And each generation, way back from the past, it has always been this. The dominant class trying to use cultural hegemony and trying to control. So then you have this history. So Marxist criticism will be about history, about what has happened in the past. Interpellation, meaning the common people who will be forced to join one group or the other. Like somebody's talking about the youth. So all the youth will be, they're going together. Somebody's talking about this, so they all be going together like that. And the power structures in a setup. Okay, so that is what is Marxist criticism. And of course, base is economics. Capital, economics. Okay? So we can see these things, we can feel these things all the time, and power structures and power and violence and all these things that we keep on reading and hearing about, Then critics, what do the critics do? They trace issues of the overt and the covert. They try to find out that what is overtly, what is written overtly, but what does it mean? What is the hidden agenda of the writer? What is the hidden agenda? So they will be looking at a text, at the themes of the text, at whatever is being written over there, and how it has been presented to hide certain things and, cover it up with certain. So overt and covert. Then the issues of class. Important is the issue of class, because the moment you're talking about class, you're talking about the dominant class, and you're talking about the bourgeois and the elite class, and you're talking about the common people, the gentry, the common people. Okay. Then they trace this. And then one more thing that they talk about, that what does this work speak for? Whom is this work speaking for? They will try to trace it out. Is it speaking for the dominant class? How is it speaking for the dominant class? So the Marxist critic will try to find out how a particular work speaks for whom. And at the same time, it is going to be consumed by whom? Who are going to be the readers? If a work is, speaking for or giving voice to the ideas of a certain people, of a certain ideology, of a certain thought, who is going to consume that work? Who is going to read that work, and how it is going to operate? So Marxist criticism does these two things also. What does the work speak for, and who is it consumed by? And therefore, what are the ideas that have gone into making that work of art as and what it is. And the politicization, therefore literary form has become politicization and economic forces. Most important in Marxist criticism, economic forces. Marxist criticism very popular. Even today, it's very, very popular. More so today, you know, because everywhere you have this the struggle for power. Power struggle has, you know, always been there, but now more than ever. Now we come to another very interesting topic, that is reader response criticism. So as I told you in the beginning, so here reader response, who is the center or the focus? It will be the reader. How does a reader take in a piece of work? What does he make of a reader? So how does the reader respond to it? So these reader response critics, so these are some of the names of the critics, and what is it? The theoretical base in the reader's mind as he reads. What does the reader know and what does he understand? So from objective criticism, objective and the formalist the subject to the mind of the reader. Objective to subjective, and the factors that shape a reader's response. The factors that shape what are the factors that shape a reader's response? How does the text control and constrain the reader? Like जो भी text है, how it forces the reader to think in a particular manner. How does it control or constrain the reader? So, you know, these ideas are very important in reader response criticism. Now, Iser is a wonderful writer. Very good essays he's written on this. Iser, I must thank, you know, Pandit Ravi Shankar Shukla University, that nearly 20 years I was teaching MPhil. Initially, I used to teach research methodology, and then I started teaching this contemporary literary theories and wonderful essays. Thanks to Tapas Mukherjee sir, when he was the person in the board, and he had brought in very good essays. I always tell him that, sir, it was a pleasure teaching MPhil students this particular paper on contemporary literary theories. So these authors, they write. So he said that reading involves anticipation. Whenever we are reading a work, we anticipate. Aage kya hoga? What is going to happen next? You know, we'll think that. Even when we're watching a movie or we're watching a web series or we're seeing a theater, what is going to happen next? So we anticipate it. Even as we receive the work in the present, we anticipate what might be going to happen. And many times what we anticipate does not happen. We get frustrated. And then we think back. There's a lot of retrospection, thinking back. And then you reconstruct everything again. You reconstruct. And then ultimately get satisfaction. So these processes are taking place where? In the mind of the reader. So these critics said that everything that happens in the mind of the reader is important. Why is it important? Because the text is reader-centric. The criticism is about the reader. It is about the reader. He has to understand. He has to see and understand what is happening in the text. And therefore, he used these two words, implied reader and actual reader. Now, the implied reader ka matlab hota hai that what were the response, you know, what were the response generating techniques used by the author? That will be the implied reader. The author ने जानबूझ के क्या क्या चीज लिखा है कि this is the implied reader, this is the way this work is going to be accepted. But then he goes on to say, but the actual reader might not be on the same wavelength as the writer. So he wrote about implied reader and actual reader. And he said that some readings are misreadings, that because every text is read in different manners. I think someone said that all readings are misreadings. And some readings are misreadings because whoever reads a particular text, whatever happens in their mind as they read it, they will stand by their responses. Then Color spoke about the conventions assimilated by a competent reader. Now, when we talk, spoke about competent reader. So a competent reader will be different from the common man in the street. He will be different from a law graduate who's reading a literary text. You know, or a different commerce student reading a literary text. So a competent reader will be one who understands literature, who understands the figures of speech and language and everything about this. So it will be, they use the word competent reader, that certain conventions, certain givens have already been assimilated by the competent reader, and that generates different responses in people. They go on to Fish also. Fish goes on to say something again very interesting. So, and let me tell you, whenever we're talking about the competent reader, Indian aesthetics में critic का नाम भूल जा रहे हैं, Sahriday. This thing is Sahriday. Sahriday is the competent reader who knows how the work has to be read. So these concepts that were being, analyzed and spoken of, and were so very, very exciting to the people in the West. We had already had all these things quietly in our philosophies, in our Indian aesthetics. Is already there. I always say that the competent reader and all was already there, written in which centuries way back. And Barthes also writes about creative reading of text as a play of differences that generate innumerable, that the text has to be read in a creative manner, innumerable, mutually contradictory and undecidable meanings. Is it this? Is it this? So as you speak about the anticipation, the frustration and restructuring and reanalyzing and seeing that, okay, the end, whatever you have thought is the end happens. And here we say that when you read a text, n number of meanings unfold before you. So that would be creative reading of the text. And then Bleach spoke about that reading is subjective process developing on the personality of the reader. So personality of the reader. Then Holland spoke about the Freudian concepts, again talking about the conscience, the conscious and the unconscious of a reader when he read a text. So he followed the Freudian ego, superego, or the unconscious, the conscious, and the conscience. All these three. So Holland tried to trace up these in the reader response criticism. Now Stanley Fish is again a very, very interesting writer, and his writes about affective stylistics. What is the style and what is the effect on the reader? So we had this work of, I'm forgetting. So affective and what is the other? I'm forgetting the name of it. Okay, so spatial on the page and temporal in the experience. So what is written, or he spoke of spatial and the temporal. Spatial is whatever the texts are written on the page, and temporal is the experience in the mind of the reader. Okay, mistakes also part of a meaning. So he said that whenever you think that this is what's going to happen, what prompted the reader to think like that? Why did he think like that? There must have been some prompt in the work, and that prompt may have made him think like that. So all the mistakes in understanding, because they have happened even for a fraction of a second, are a part of the meaning of the text. So Fish say that each meaning is also part of meaning. This mistakes are also part of the meaning, and he speaks about these slides. And in that wonderful essay by Stanley Fish on Interpretive Communities, I think, he has analyzed sonnets. He has spoken about 3 sonnets. The Velorium, I think, yeah, it's the Velorium. I think the S name, this is the Velorium. Velorium meaning a book with poems and lots of notes at the end. So the notes at the end written at one time, and in a reprint it changes. He highlights those things and he says how this meaning of the same sonnet has changed. Okay, so these moments of slide, when the meaning slides out of control of the mind of the reader, and he tries to bring it back again. So he spoke about these meanings of slides, and then he spoke about interpretive communities. So interpretive communities meaning again the competent readers who have been taught how to interpret a text. Suppose a group of a community, interpretive communities will be different, one thinking about maybe the feminist, or one thinking about the colonial, one thinking about Marxist. So they're different communities. And one might move from one community to the other. So these communities are those that are versed in the traditions of that particular critical thought or theory. So he spoke about interpretive communities, and he said that one keeps on changing from one community to the other as they interpret a text. One can move. It is not there that you'll be just there only. So reader response criticism talks about all these things and these ideas. It is very interesting, most of the essays over here. Now this is again something I'm going to just jump over, structuralism and post-structuralism. Now structuralism, most basic idea is, it's from the basic linguistic, that language, the structure of language. Whatever is our reality is what we see and how it has been put in words, in language. Okay, so this, and Levi Strauss, these are all talking about the culture, and whenever a structure or culture, it operates together. So understanding is never in isolation in context of larger structure, the larger structures of society, of culture, inside, outside. Saussure also spoke about that all meanings are arbitrary and relational. They are in relation to certain structures that are already there in society, in language, and language frames our world. They spoke about lang and parole, saying that the parole or the ultimate speech will be meaningless unless you know the lang. So what do? They analyze text by relating them to structures like genre, models of universal narrative structures, identify patterns, apply concept of patterns in a process. Then post-structuralism and deconstruction, death of the author, because you're talking only about the work. Death of the author is famous. And then you have structure, sign, and play in the discourse of the human sciences, where Derrida said that one particular sign will not, he spoke about these three concepts, and innumerable. Deconstruction will not negate a single meaning. All meanings, all ideas that are there, that come, are accepted. He spoke about these, and to the level, and used the word aporia, impasse. What else? What next? What next? What next? So a deadlock situation where one cannot actually decide. So post-structuralism and deconstruction sort of work together. They were parallel. Now structuralism and post-structuralism. So structuralism is based on language, post-structuralism from philosophy, detached and scientific, and this is this. Now, structuralism and post-structuralism, the structuralist wants parallels, equals balance, but a post-structuralist will, enjoy the shift and the break, changes that are taking place in the tone or the viewpoint and the tenses, time, person, attitude, all the shifts and breaks. But what the structurists will try to keep on looking for a structure or a balance. They will talk about reflections, repetition, but the post-structurists will look at conflicts, symmetry, then contrast, and this, and these are the things. Effect is to show textual unity, and post-structuralism to show the textual disunity. So they celebrate the disunity, they celebrate the fragmentation and the opening out of the mind, as Derrida said, opening out of the mind into n number of ideas. So even Derrida uses the word difference. No, you must have done that word difference. So D-I-F-F-E-R, differ means different, and D-E-F-E-R means किसी भी decision को differ करना, बाद में लेंगे ये decision. So using these two concepts, he coined the word difference. So D-I-F-F-E-R-A-N-C-E. The difference, the different meanings differed and taking place at different times. Okay, so then we come to modernism and postmodernism. So these are the times that were there, and these are the thinkers. And we all know that the particular period you had the existential crisis and all that. Eliot, James Joyce, Virginia Woolf. They were writing about stream of consciousness, automatic writing, and they were eclectic, borrowing from all. postmodernism and modernism, they're more or less, very parallel, slightly different, but more or less at the same time. Parody, pastiche. So they're talking about, whenever we talk about modernism and postmodernism, they were talking about the text. They were talking about the subtext that is there, below the text. They were talking about the intertextuality, how a particular work, reminds the reader or falls back on something that has been written way back. So the intertextuality, and they used another word, the metatext, all the text that has been written about the text. So you have the text, the subtext, the intertext, and the metatext. So intertextuality became very, very important when you're talking about the modernism and postmodernism. These things become very important. Okay, so the eclectic and parody, pastiche is when in a particular work you can feel, it comes from the term that an imprint has been made in cloth, it has been cleaned, but a part of the shade remains. So how a particular work rings of another work, intertextuality, fragmented, disruptive syntax, and all these things. And these were other writers, and blend elite and mass culture. Postmodernism blended elite and mass culture, absurd, void, abyss, all these things, cartoons, graffiti. So with the Claude Levi, Strauss, and cultural materialism and historicism, culture had become the famous. And therefore you had all these schools coming up with culture studies. That language does not operate alone, it is related to the culture. And therefore pop art and cartoons and popular fiction and pulp fiction and all those things. And today you have so many other new genres that are taking place. Then the modernist and postmodernist, the modernist has nostalgia, lament, despair, and he's sad, but the postmodernist enjoys the fragmentation of literature, he enjoys the breaks, he enjoys the confusion, because postmodernism and post-structuralism sort of go together. So, n number of meanings, come to the impasse, do not negate anything, everything that's there is there, all those type of ways of thinking. Then another key thinker at this time was Baudrillard, his models of representation. Because whenever we talk about literature, we're talking about how literature represents life. So yes, I'm forgetting, but he had this four models of representation, which he connects to paintings. He says that the first one represents reality as it is. That there's a plant and the painter has painted a plant which is looking exactly the same. Okay, so you have whatever is the basic reality is presented. In the second stage, what happens is that a different view of the reality is given. So if the reality is dark, it is given, it is made to appear very beautiful. It is made to appear very beautiful. And then in the third stage, you have building up a completely new image, which has got nothing to do with the thing. A wonderful image, wonderful representation of hiding that which is terrible or bad. And he had given the example of Disneyland. That Disneyland makes America sound so wonderful and so beautiful, and so this thing hiding the true reality. So that the third stage is the very most dangerous stage, because what is being portrayed in front of people and what is actually is different. Understand? And therefore how it works in the minds of the people. So that is the third stage. And the fourth stage was that completely abstract. So your abstract art, where you cannot actually know that what is the real. You do not know about the real. Okay, so he speaks about a painting in which you have the head of the viewer who is looking at a picture of a person who is painting, and the canvas is there in front of him, and on the canvas is something that is way beyond a tree or something that is there. So is that real, or is the picture real? Is the artist's vision real, or is the person standing over there looking at the painting that is being made real? So what is the real? That becomes the fourth stage. So Baudrillard had got all these models sort of representation. It's very interesting actually, when you look at a particular thing and you try to think of a particular text in those lines. Now, the critics search for themes, attitudes, identify shifting identities, mixing of literary genres, foreground, intertextuality is very important. And there's an allusion, that when you take a work and you trace allusion or you trace pastiche or trace parody in a work. Foreground narcissism, when novels debate their own ends, that certain novels are narcissists, they're in love with themselves and they declare that this is what this particular work tries to do. And deny the distinction between this, okay? So now new historicism, pata nahi kitna bacha hai. Okay, ma'am, I'll try to finish in 10 minutes. How much time do I have? 10 minutes? 10 minutes I'll try to finish.
Yeah.
10 or 15, 2-3 slide baki hai. Okay. New historicism. Now, you understand the word historicism. So you're talking about history, you're talking about background. So historicism was there way back, and history was very important in the analysis of any particular text. So new historicism talks about parallel reading of literary and non-literary texts. So in a particular age, the non-literary text will be, it can be journalistic, it can be legal, it can be scientific, non-literary. As you spoke about the literariness of language, we were speaking about with the formalists, the literary and the non-literary texts are read together, trying to understand the history behind it, the forces that are operating at a particular moment of time behind that literary text. So the literary texts are formed by conditions of the time and place. Okay? And therefore, they're actually, when they said that all human beings were the same, no, they were not. Different historical periods, the worldview, which we say the worldview of a particular moment of time is different according to the history, according to all that was happening. And therefore, they wrote, new historicist critics, they said that the text is embedded in history, the embeddedness of literature. They used the word embedded. That because whatever is happening, the non-literary that is happening is there in the text, embedded in history. And other words that they used, which are all very, very related to commerce, negotiation. So when they use the word negotiation, they meant the negotiation of a literary text to the non-literary. The transaction between the two. If a particular text is talking about a moral dilemma related to justice. So what was the non-literary? So what was the transaction that was taking place in that particular historical moment of time, So the transaction and the exchange, and they use this word, the exchange, commerce, these words, because exchange and commerce was taking place between the literary and the non-literary. And we all know that whatever is happening at a moment of time does influence the literature of that particular time. So new historicism, which had been forgotten, came back with these particular terms, not only history, but the negotiation. And here again, this idea is very important. The author is both subject and agent in the discourse. So what did the critics mean? That the author is being subjected to the world view and all the non-literary that is, his consciousness is being bombarded with. So he becomes a subject. He is the, a part of it. He is the subject. And at the same time, when he writes it, he is the agent. He becomes an agent. So he is both the subject and the agent in a particular text. Okay. And then they use the word appropriation. Now for students, there are two words. One, appropriate means, okay, this is appropriate, this is enough, this is okay. And other, appropriate means to take something from the other, appropriate it for yourself. So what was the literary text doing? It was appropriating something from the legal or from the scientific and making it one's own. Okay, so that is appropriation. So certain, and therefore this appropriation also comes from the same ideas of negotiation, transaction, exchange, commerce, and appropriation. Okay, so the political readings. So whatever is the political meaning of a particular time, what is happening in the politics, the political reading, in of which the author himself is subjected to it, and he writes a particular work and writes about those things. So political readings. And then he talks about the subtext. Subtext, I told you just now, the text is the work. Subtext is that which is there underlying, below. So the historical and all the political conflicts, historical political conflicts. So in the non-literary, you're talking about sociology, you're talking about economics, you're talking about, legal and scientific and all those other things, political conflicts. And then they try to highlight the suppression, where it is being suppressed, and the silences. Now, what you try to speak of, they will try to bring out the silences. That, you will hardly find any literature that will say that imperialism wonderful, colonialism wonderful, Most texts will be silent about it because they're not going to be taken properly. And then the silences also in those of the lower class. In a political conflict, the dominant and the one that is below. Silences and the suppression. We know that we keep on talking about the silent, this particular work might be just suppression, entire work can be studied. And Foucault spoke about panoptic. Now, panoptic, the word comes from panopticism, it is called, that it comes from a jail. There was a central pillar, and then the jail was there, and the guard at the top, he could see everyone, he was at the top and he could see everyone, what all the prisoners were doing. So the state is all powerful. State powerful, ruling class, dominant class, most powerful. It is all seen and constant surveillance. Okay, so you're talking about these things. We keep on talking about privacy issues nowadays, that you are under CCTV surveillance. It'll be written everywhere. You are under CCTV surveillance. So it reminds me of George Orwell in 1984. 1984, the dog, this thing that there is no freedom for the man, complete fascism, where when he tries to hide. If he has to write something, he has to hide on a window. He cannot come in front of the TV because the TV is already looking at him. He cannot go and meet a friend because this is he's going to be watched, and they're so scared. Constant surveillance, and that is what we are living through. This thing of being forever under surveillance. And therefore the privacy issues are coming up, that Aadhaar bata diye to sabhi cheez aapke bare mein bata denge. How will Google know everything about me? Why should it always know everything about me? These issues are there. So he was talking about panoptic, and panoptic, I'm reminded also of, if any one of you go to Andaman Nicobar Islands and go to the cellular jail in Port Blair, cellular jail, काला पानी की सजा जो होती थी, तो वहाँ पे भी, there's a center, and then there are 7 wings like that. And sometimes a prisoner in one wing would not even know that his brother was also in another wing. It was like that. But the center would know everything because he was surveillance of the entire. So panopticism is also very important and very interesting concept. A literary student can just take this and trace it out in different words. George Orwell, panopticism. Then you have, so what happens? What do they do? Critics juxtapose literary and non-literary. They focus attention on power. Because again, you're talking about power. History, negotiation, politics, power, important. And how it is maintained. Just like what we were talking about in the other idea, Marxist criticism. That the dominant class will legitimize whatever it wants to do and make it appear as though it is correct and make people just follow it blindly, being spoon-fed and fooled into thinking that whatever the state is doing is just doing it for their good. It is doing it for their good. So they just go on believing it, and that is how the dominant class maintains its power It will not let go of its power. And therefore, the ideas of hegemony and all those things that we discussed earlier. Power and how it is maintained, and the perpetuation of power, colonization mindsets, colonization, how colonize karna hai, this sort of mindset. Then you have cultural materialism. Again, cultural materialism is about base and superstructure, as we spoke about Marxist criticism, class, issues of class, dominance, power, and economics. Texts try to transform a social order where exploitation on race, class, and gender. So cultural materialism is about economics. It is about race, class, and gender. We keep on talking about these things. So they reread text to recover its history, study how texts are transmitted, and close textual analysis. In the last slide, historicism also, there's a famous term, I'm forgetting who said this, the textuality of history and the historicity of texts. So the history that we're reading is also a text. So the textuality of history and the historicity of text is a very popular frame and idea. Now we come to post-colonialism, which is again very, very important. So we all know that it is about the colonial countries that were initially under the former colonies of England, basically England, France, and other imperial powers. Now, the second point I've written, challenges liberal humanist views of universalism. They say that nothing is universal, that all human beings are same. No. Eurocentric, the white, they have been ruling the world, and the post-colonial will try to defy and challenge that, the Eurocentric views. So you have these main works, the Wretched of the World, Orientalism, The Empire Writes Back, and Nation and Narration. Because when you think of colonies, even we are all products of a colonial system, that you have more than 200 years we were under the British rule. So what do these critics do? They reclaim the past. They try to go back to the past, erase the ideology that devalued the past. You open up your eyes too at how those who had invaded us and colonized us had lessened the value of our own cultures. Okay, so when Syed argues that they thought that the Orient, they are, backward and dark, uneducated, and whatever the white brings from Europe, they have to teach these people. And whatever was the root or the basic culture of a colonized country was therefore devalued and lost. Because what was operating here again was power. Power was operating. So, the other and the topic of the other and the subaltern, these two topics, the living in the margins or the subaltern, came in from here. And subaltern's emphasis on double identity. What the double identity? Because here was a person who was an Indian serving the British rulers, being paid by them. So he is the servant, but at the same time, he has got his own identity as an Indian, what he is. So this double identity there. And another word that is very common in post-colonial is hybridity. Hybridity is that whenever two cultures mix, that is the hybrid culture. Okay, and therefore you had Naipaul, who was talking about the chutnification, Rushdie talking about the chutnification of language, in post-colonialism, where another culture has come in this thing. Then you talk about the cross-cultural, transitional. Transitional is adopt, adapt, and adapt. And polyvalency. Polyvalency means at a particular moment of time, a particular individual, this thing can be plural. You can at the same time be deeply rooted in your own culture, adopt and become adept at a new culture, and not forget your own past, at a polyvalency. So the critics here, what do? They reject the claims of universalism, examine representation of other cultures, expose the silence on colonialism, talk of cultural difference, celebrate hybridity and cultural polyvalency, develop perspectives on pluralism, marginality, plurality, perceived otherness, and sources of energy and potential change. That how potential change. So hybridity colonialism is, trying to basically reclaim the past, bring back that distrust, and also highlight the suffering or how, the getting the term, this culture that has come from getting those two terms, residual and the other term, that how it is, they have to listen to that of the colonizer. Another one idea, eco-criticism, Silent Spring brought it in. So it becomes anthropocentric, where the earth is the center and all that the earth stands for. The environmental studies, nature writing, and all these things. The critics read with ecocentric perspective and ecofeminism, because they all draw these parallels. Patricia Waugh is a very good work. Patricia Waugh, Literary Theory and Criticism, wonderful work. She writes about the nature culture debate. The culture always treats nature becomes, is all giving, and therefore it is related to the female or the feminine, and female and man who exploits is the exploiter. So nature versus culture debate. Then critics read the text with ecocentric perspective, eco-friendly wilderness texts, study writers who use nature as backdrop and subject matter, travel writings, regional, animistic religions. Animistic religions are religions where trees and plants and animals, everything blend together. Environmental responsibility, they study literature on natural disasters, petroleum crisis, geopolitical issues, environmental pollution. So certain, recent works that are thrillers and all deal with these works on natural disasters, on crisis and all. Certain very good books are there. Popular thrillers, they're basically thrillers. And phenomenological critics about the phenomena or the lived world. So critics, so they're called critics of consciousness of the consciousness of another, trying to understand what was the author, and to read a work to explain the author's is. In feminist criticism, this is interesting. So these are the main names that you can see over there. Wollstonecraft, Vindication of the Rights of Women, Virginia Woolf, Room of My Own, The Second Sex, Criticism, Walter, Feminist Criticism, The Wilderness, and all these, and Mad Woman in the Attic. These are all thinkers. They say that culture is patriarchal, gender is a social construct. That Debar says that one is not born but becomes a woman, and distorted representation of women in canonical literature. So they challenge the canonical literature, that in all the literature of the past, it is patriarchal and it is not giving a very good or sympathetic or real, true image of women. So what is feminist criticism? They talk about these three words. Female becomes biology, feminine becomes the moral or cultural context, that being feminine means these things. Female is biology, feminine is cultural, and feminist is when you challenge the constraints put on by the patriarchal society. That becomes feminism or feminist. Then they are all social, they talk about social constructs, eclectic. Now feminist criticism became eclectic in the sense that they borrowed from Marxist criticism, they borrowed from psychoanalytic criticism, challenging the views of Lacan, and Marxist criticism, that how women have not been given the due role as, factors of production, and therefore how they have been subdued and suppressed always. So these things, then language, symbolic, and the semiotic, this as a sign. Then the word, talk about the word slippage. The slippage is that powerlessness and rage of women. So when you talk about, that Rochester in Jane Eyre, and certain madness, rage, suppression, then you have, these women, they were writing under pseudonyms. Because if they wrote under other names, they would not be allowed by society. So these feminist critics, they say that when women write, they have the fathers looking over them, the fathers looking over their shoulder, and therefore they become very conscious of what they're writing, because the father, or the patriarchal system that the father represents, is viewing and correcting and going to check whatever they write. Just like when you talk about American literature, or you talk about Black American fiction, you have the white fathers looking over the writings of Ralph Ellison, Maya Angelou, Zora Neale Hurston, and other such writers. Alice Walker, feminist and Black feminism, or African American, that is also again a very huge area. I have not covered that. So they rethink the canon, revalue women's experience. So the different stages of feminist criticism was that initially they started writing with the fathers looking over them, and therefore what were they doing? They were imitating that which had already been written, and then they opened out into tracing out the writers, feminist writers that had been suppressed, that had not been given due importance. So we have Alice Walker discovering Zora Neale Hurston. Zora Neale Hurston was written, but Alice Walker brought her to the level that she is at present. So much so that the Hurston Festival is celebrated always. But she had died in, poor, where people had to contribute even for her funeral. It was like that. But she was discovered by Alice Walker. So what were these feminists doing? They were trying to bring out those writers that had never become canonical, that had been suppressed by writers of the time, certain such writers. So they study the male, and they study the revalue, again, women's experience, study male representation of women, talk about patriarchy, explore biology and the social constructs. Anatomy is destiny. You're born a woman, that will frame your destiny. If you're born a man, so anatomy is destiny. It was famously said by Debar, I think, yeah. Then you have challenge the portrayal of women as other, lack and nature, role of language and écriture feminine and criticism show alter how women will write, and ecofeminism and re-examine psychoanalysis. So then you have gender, lesbian, or these issues are very important, and these are the different writers who are writing about this. Their focus is on sex and sexuality, the sexual orientation, gender as a fundamental category of analysis and understanding, and all the social political connotations, fear, so lesbian feminism and all these things. So queer also stands for everything that is deviant and variant and all those things. And then you have so many transgenders and more. So nowadays people are getting really interested in studying these areas. So critics identify works, relationships, and look for the liminal crossing between one and the other. Boundary moments. Talk of text exploring masculinity, femininity, glossing over affections in First World War poetry, expose phobia, fear, disgust, gender as performative and bonding. So transgenders also, when you think of it, you can't believe it, but Neelu, let me tell you that the other day I met somebody in Rajnandgaon who are of such broad views that he had two daughters. He told me that one of my, मेरा एक बेटी मेरा अब बेटा बन गया है. So they went in for a change of gender. I was really amazed. I said, my God, in such a small place here is somebody taking this step. And I've got one student, who is interested in this. I said, I'm going to connect you so you can understand what that person. Of course, that girl we used to always see, she used to have short hair, always jeans and everything, and dancing and taking dance classes. And she's become a boy now. So now he's got a son and a daughter. So something so we feel quite surprised, because sometimes these things seem to be very far away. They seem to be only in texts and articles, very far away. And I spoke to him, I was really amazed, and he said that we have this विचार बहुत खुले हुए हैं, खुले विचार कहूँ मैं. And then next, now what next? So theories, I'm just raising these ideas that routine and common today, but shifting identities, being to becoming. So these are certain ideas being to becoming unstable literary texts, which are appropriated by different groups. एक पर्टिकुलर टेक्स्ट को एक पर्टिकुलर ग्रुप अप्रोप्रिएट कर देगा, उसको दूसरा बना देगा. सो अनस्टेबिलिटी ऑफ लिटरेरी टेक्स्ट, instability of language itself, challenge theories. Now the changes of approach that is coming in is that what things have to be demonstrated and downsized, and the leaning towards the spiritual. Now since the terrible condition man has come into, the leaning towards the spiritual is there, away from linguistic constructive sublime, cultural critique against the rise of terrorism, fundamentalism, and all these things are also happening. This, and then the crisis environment and all those things, issues that are going to be, these are the things that are going to be studied next. The crisis to the petroleum crisis, the disaster management, and all those things that are discussed all the time. So presentism, meaning the text meaning in the present, transversal poetics, these are the different areas that are coming, cognitive poetics and all those things that are coming, and cognitive and all these others, many areas that will keep on happening. And so now we come to the last blank slide, which means thank you and bye. Okay, thank you so much. I could not put in the proper slide. I'll be closing the presentation. And if there are any questions, you can ask. Is this slideshow gone?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, you made us feel like traveling on a beautiful journey of criticism, right from the classical critics to the postmodern critics. And it was a beautiful journey, and you have dealt with in such a detailed and interesting manner different kinds of criticism. So thank you so much, ma'am. I'm sure all our research scholars, PG students, and even the faculty members have been so enlightened with your erudite lecture, ma'am.
Actually, I had to hurry through because there's so many more, but many I had to just ignore. But then, I wanted to talk about the core ideas, so that students will, learn how to go about it and understand what the ideas and concepts are about. Because at the MA level, they deal with a very little. It's very little segments only. They don't really know much about critical theories, which of course MPhil scholars know because they have done it in great detail. Okay, I hope everybody could understand what I was trying to say. I don't know.
I wish
The entire course of literary criticism we got revised.
I know, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give a lecture, not a presentation. So this was basically all text only, because I just wanted to let all what are these key critical theories, what do they talk about, and what they do. Okay.
Yes.
Any questions for me?
Madam, I have one.
Okay.
Madam, actually it is not a question, but I wish your comments on, you talked about new criticism. Sorry, not new criticism, new historicism. So applying new historicism in Amitabh Ghosh's work. Like he talks a lot about colonial times.
Actually, you are right. Amitabh Ghosh will be, yes, a new historical study of Amitabh Ghosh will be wonderful, because he's been writing about, he's written about your Sundarbans, then he's written all the works that he's writing about are related to different ideas that are taking place at present. What the Sea of Poppies, that entire trilogy covers three different aspects. That entire trilogy, and the Calcutta chromosome. So that is what is happening. What he
and
is
the schedule lines as well.
The entire background of the non-literary. So if it's choices about the literary and the non-literary, so the non-literary is also written in great detail by him. So sometimes people, of course, say that his writing is very journalistic, that he's writing like a journalist, but he puts in a lot and lot of Amitav Ghosh works are very, very well researched. Very well researched. So by he studies whichever field he researches, and therefore sometimes it is difficult to read, and the narrative moves slightly slowly, but then many ideas are correct. So historicism and this moving negotiation between both is there, the literary and the non-literary.
Yes. Thank you.
Ma'am, the session was indeed so thought-provoking. Your thoughts have enlightened our mind with new knowledge and made us think deep inside the literary theories in literature. Personally, I find these theories very complex and confusing, but a very big thanks to you, ma'am, for simplifying the broader terms like formalism, new criticism, structuralism, post-structuralism, historicism, modernism, Freud's concept of ego and superego, Oedipus and Electra complexes, and many more in the queue, ma'am. Now I finally know how to differentiate between literary theories from that of literary criticism. I'm sure that the audience would agree that no one can explain these frightening theories in such a simplified manner like you did, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am, for sharing your vast knowledge with us. Now I would like to call for queries if students have any. Kindly unmute yourselves and ask.
Ma'am, may I ask any question?
Please पूछिए.
Ma'am, this is Abhishek.
Yes.
I'm a research scholar in DB Girls College, Raipur.
Okay.
Ma'am, I just want to ask you, may I take your notes for teaching in net classes? Because your notes are awesome, ma'am.
Where they basically hints are there, of course. Yes, no issues.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Because we all fall back on prior knowledge, no?
Yes.
So knowledge is available for everyone, no issues at all.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else?
Any other queries from participants?
They're tired of listening to my voice, Neelu.
No.
Not at all, ma'am.
Rather, I would request you to share your.
Non-stop. इतना बड़ा प्रवचन चल रहा है, बाबा बंद करो.
Ma'am, rather I would request you to share your presentation to us, because it was really like a vast ocean of knowledge regarding criticism.
I think it is there. I have mailed it to you, Neelu.
Okay, you have mailed it. Okay.
So the light just disappeared, no? Electricity wo gaya, so I got so scared. Quickly, the moment it came, I think, but luckily it's been there now. Okay. So I have mailed it to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel all my students over here, Anita and Manjari and Chandan, all of you are doing well. You have got a very good team.
Yes, ma'am, definitely.
Team. Anita?
Shankar ma'am, actually there is on Sunday we have an exam, B.Ed exam. So she is
Okay.
She's coordinator of.
Okay. So she must be busy there.
She is there.
The season has come. All Sundays are going to be with exams.
Yes. Over to Monica.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Bye.
So
Blessings to all. Blessings to one and all. Yeah, one and all. Yes.
So for the second half, we have with us our special guest of honor, Dr. P.N. Sanisar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Government Autonomous PG College, Chhindwara. The title for his talk today is Researching Biographies. Biographies detail the life of a major figure in society, and researching biographies are mainly concerned with the reconstruction of the life histories and constitution of meaning based on biographical narrations and documents. Personally, historical biographies attract me the most, and I'm pretty sure that the audience is equally excited to listen to you, sir. So without further delay, I would like to request Ms. Arya to invite Dr. Sanesar with a formal introduction. Over to you, Ms. Arya. Arya, kindly unmute yourself.
Yes, Monica, she's just coming.
Okay, sure.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Arya Sahu, student of Stanley English Literature, Govt Digvijay College, Rajnandgaon. I welcome you all in the national level virtual workshop on basis of research methodology. Taking our workshop further, I, on behalf of everyone present here, heartily welcome our speaker, Dr. P.N. Sanesar, sir. At present, P.N. Sanesar, sir, is assistant professor at Department of English, Government Autonomous PG College, Chhindwara. He is a well-known resource person, motivational speaker, career counselor, state and district level master trainer of election, census, and other concerned trainings of different district administration. His administrative experience is notable at In Charge Principal Government College, Saucer, Chhindwara for 5 years. He has a working experience of 17 years as an in-charge officer of Swami Vivekanand Career Guidance Scheme. He also organized 2 annual mega job fair for students also in 2018 and 2019, in which more than 5,000 students were benefited and some of them got placement in various multinational companies. Area of interest of Professor Sanesar sir are drama and English language and his specialization in American literature. He did his PhD in English from Barkatullah University, Bhopal. He notably invited others as a speaker in workshops and webinars in various colleges of India, national and state level conferences, and 16 international conferences. Professor Sanesar evaluated 15 PhD theses of various universities. He also edited 2 research books and international, national, and state level 56 papers in journals and 43 paper presentations. He is awarded by Mother India Award for Education Excellence for Outstanding Individual Achievement and Distinguished Services to the Nation, and his works includes many certificates of appreciation. So with all the due respect on behalf of Department of English, Government Digvijay College, Rajnandgaon, I would like to invite Professor Sanesar sir to deliver a speech on researching biographies.
A very happy good afternoon to one and all. Let me first thank to the pretty girl who just introduced me. Well, the words were really marvelous, but your appearance was more acknowledgeable comparating to the words. See, in the last 18 years of college teaching, we have done number of things. All the professors who are associated with this workshop, they also have done lots of work. So definitely being a formal protocol of any workshop or seminar or conference, this thing should be introduced. Well, really, I'm really very happy. So in the national level virtual workshop on the basics of research methodology, let me first thanks to the Department of English of Government Digvijay Autonomous PG College, Rajnandgaon, Chhattisgarh, for inviting me as a resource person for this very workshop. I would like to acknowledge Dr. Anita Shankar ma'am, the convener of this workshop, Dr. Neelu Srivastava ma'am, who is continuously in contact with all the resource person. Shri Soni Sahab, Dr. Ankita ma'am, Miss Manjari Singh, and all the very academic personalities whom I can see here and whose names are mentioned here. And where is the dynamic personality, the principal of government Digvijay Auto PG College, Rajnandgaon, Dr. Tandekar Sahab.
He was just there, sir, a few moments back. He was there.
See, when we have such dynamic personalities as the leader of our team, so this type of events do happen. Means organizing number of national level virtual workshops, seminars, conferences, short-term courses. Really, that is a great thing. So, congratulations to the team, and I was just there in the lecture of Dr. Savita ma'am. How beautifully she has stated all the things, and I can see, and as I discussed with Neelu ma'am, so I came to know that most of the participants are research scholars, PG students. So first, let me first say you all that you are really very fortunate. You are really very fortunate because you are getting the long experienced knowledge of Dr. Anita Shankar ma'am. She's senior professor, and if I'm not wrong, she has guided thousands of students for doing MA English in research and in number of things of life. I'm in contact with Dr. Anita ma'am, I think from last 5 to 6 years. Now let us come to the topic. See, what generally happens that the speakers used to fire from one side only, but I do I do believe in two-way communication. I do believe in two-way communication means either I am the resource person of any international conference or any seminar or virtual workshops. I do like to communicate in two ways. I would like to know, is there English here? Is there any student of? Please respond because you need not to mute your mic. Just talk with me. We'll talk on this topic in two-way communication. Is there any student of MA English, please? Nobody is there from MA English.
Sir, our students are there. Arya is there.
Ma'am, please allow them to talk with me.
Yeah.
Let them speak.
All the participants, they are free to ask anything or to communicate anything they want to.
Yes, yes.
Good, sir. They can unmute themselves.
I need students of MA English, then some research scholars. Well, all the professors are really great personalities. They are esteemed professors. They have long experience. But what I think that the basics of research methodology should be known by the fresh students of PG, should be known by the fresh research scholars, because we all professors are doing this from last 10, 15, 20, 25 years. So I wish to talk with the research scholars and with the PG students also. And even I request all the senior professors to please correct me if I go somewhere wrong. In fact, this lecture will be not a lecture. This will be a group discussion. So if you allow me, shall I share my screen?
Yes, sir. Please.
Okay, thank you so much.
Our head of the department, Dr. Anita Shankar, she is here. Actually, she was busy in the preparation for Sunday's exam. Madam, I welcome you. Yes, ma'am. Anita ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Hello, hello. I am
Yes,
here.
yes, ma'am.
Yes,
We can hear you.
just when it started, I was here, and I have my hearty welcome to Sanisar sir, Santa ma'am, and all of the participants.
I hope the screen is visible.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, thank you so much. Uh, as I have come to know that Dr. Anita Shankar ma'am has just joined. Ma'am, welcome and very happy good afternoon to you.
Welcome,
I
welcome,
hope you are
Sanisar sir.
with
Yes, I am here.
lovely.
Yes. Uh,
Okay.
just you, just stand here and I'm listening to you. Okay, continue.
Okay, so formally, now I am going to start my presentation. So in this national level virtual workshop on basics of research methodology, my topic is researching biographies. Now, why I asked the organizers that I would like to talk with PG students and research scholar, the answer will come in the next slide. Okay, I hope this slide is visible to everybody.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
now I wish to ask the student, any of the student of MA English who wish to do research in English, those research scholars who are already in the train of research. So now I would like to ask you what this picture is saying. What is this? I just want to know your approach with anything. So I've taken this picture and I wish to know think when you see this picture. Yes, please. I am waiting for your response. Any of the research scholar, any I would like to take help of any professors, those who are associated with this uh, national level. Come on, I wish to talk.
Sir, what I can find is that there is a boat and it is ready to sail on a journey. It is
Yes,
anchored
great.
at the beach and it is ready for its journey.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Yes, anybody else, please help me. Ma'am's views are really very nice. The boat is ready. Yes, कोई और प्लीज कोई रिसर्च स्कॉलर या कोई पीजी स्टूडेंट I am going to be bilingual because the aim of my presentation that I just want to give whatever I have prepared for you. Means it is not only for delivering here. I just want to give this to you with new insights, with new thinking, with new research approach. Yes, ma'am has stated correct. Any research scholar, please?
Sir,
Monica.
though I am teaching, but I am also a research scholar, so I also want to comment.
Yes, your name, please. Your name, please.
I am Chandan Soni, sir,
Ha, Chandan Soni ji.
research
Yes,
scholar from NIT Raipur.
great. So, what do you think? What is this?
Sir, I feel that the boat is having rest after a long journey.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that is what I felt.
Ha, very good. You have talked about the boat only. And what's
And,
about
the journey, the road to the journey is visible, that it would have been to the place, it seems like a church or some monument on the other side.
Very nice. Very
We
good.
can feel the atmosphere of Wordsworth.
Hi. Wow.
There is some leaves visible. So there is the boat is there is a tree, I guess, at this end.
There is a tree. There is the boat. Water
It
is
is
there.
cloudy. Weather is cloudy. Beautiful weather it is.
And sir, I
Either
also
it is
feel
early morning or
Yes. Yes.
late evening.
I just want your words. You know, I am going to present only 15 to 20 slides, but I just wish that everybody should speak. Come on.
Sir, I
Yes.
also feel that the church which is being seen at a long distance, maybe that is the destination of this boat and the person who will be sailing along with that.
Excellent, 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 ma'am. Absolutely correct. If anybody want to add something, then most welcome, or I'll move.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Sir,
Yes.
proper boatsman is needed to cross the river so that it go to its destiny.
Very good.
Yes, great. Wow, you
Yes,
are the
sir.
fourth person who has spoken on this. Great, great. Anybody else, please? Everybody can speak. We are on the very first slide, and now we are here for one hour, and you will see that when the presentation will end, you will be on the journey of research. That's my promise.
Sir, I can also observe that the water is still, so still that the image of the church is visible on the surface of the water. So it is a good time to sail,
Hmm. Great,
or
nice,
rather a bad time to sail.
fine, very good. Anybody else? कोई और बोलना चाहे? You can speak in Hindi also. No problem is there. Any student, any PG student, please. Okay, fine. So five personalities, professors, research scholar, PG student have stated what they saw. The question that we see in this slide, what is this? This is like, तुमको देखा तो ये ख्याल आया, जिंदगी धूप तुम घना साया, तुमको देखा. See, these were not just two lines. The boat is the research scholar. The boat is the student who wished to do research. The boat, we have given two names to the boat: research scholar and the person who wished to research. So when you want to do your research in any specific field, you need to be like this. You need to be like this. Just look at the board. इस board को देखिए, और ये board कहाँ पर है? On a platform. So the boat is on the platform. The platform is none other than your guide, your research supervisor. Just remember, I would like to say all the respected professors that please just remember the very first day when you visited your research guide. उस पहले दिन को याद कीजिए जब आप अपने रिसर्च गाइड से मिलने के लिए पहली बार गए थे. हमारी स्थिति बिल्कुल इस बोट के जैसी थी. थोड़ा बहुत वी हैड समथिंग इन आवर माइंड एंड वी नो कि विल स्टैंड ओनली इफ द रिसर्च स्कॉलर विल से यस. यदि रिसर्च स्कॉलर हमको हाँ कहेगा तो ठीक है भाई, हमारी बात बन जाएगी. पीएचडी की शुरुआत करने के लिए या रिसर्च की शुरुआत करने के लिए जब स्टूडेंट जाता है तो उसकी स्थिति बिल्कुल लगभग ऐसी होती है। वो इस उम्मीद में जाता है कि मुझे एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म मिले जो मुझे गाइड करे, जो मुझे इंस्ट्रक्ट करे, जो मुझे मोटिवेट करे दैट हाउ टू डू रिसर्च। एंड व्हेन द प्लेटफॉर्म होल्ड्स यू, when the platform gives you the space, when the platform say yes, okay, now I am ready to guide you. So from that point, just see this water, we can call it like a sea also, let us take it as a sea, or just an island, just take it as an island. The journey of research is just like the water, the unlimited water is there. Unlimited water is there. Why we are calling it research? The water is already searched by somebody. Now we have to research what is there in the water. And when you find the contents, when you find the material according to your chapterization, this will bring you to that destination. ये जो चर्च जैसा आपको दिखाई दे रहा है, इसको आप आइलैंड कह लीजिए, आप इसको अपना डेस्टिनेशन कह लीजिए, आप इसको अपना टारगेट कह लीजिए, whatever you wish to say, you can call it. So my dear friends, the journey between the award of PhD degree and the start of your research work begins with this very slide. This is my perception. This is my perception. Because when I started to do my research work, I had no idea that what to do. Just consider yourself as a student and think, what is research work, what is PhD? So you will better understand what the situation is. I hope you get the message what I wanted to convey through this slide.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, we got it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. इस स्लाइड को आपने इस तरीके से देखा कि आप एमए इंग्लिश के स्टूडेंट हैं या आप कोई रिसर्च के स्टूडेंट हैं, आप उस बहुत शानदार प्लेटफॉर्म पर पहुंचे जो कि आप किस रूप में देखते हैं, अपने रिसर्च गाइड के रूप में। हमारी स्थिति एक बीइंग अ स्टूडेंट ऐसी ही होती है। आज के इस लेक्चर में ज्यादातर स्टूडेंट्स हैं, इसलिए मैंने स्टूडेंट सेंट्रिक अपने लेक्चर को बनाया है। प्रोफेसर्स तो हमारे हैं ही। तो हमारी स्थिति ना ये बिल्कुल इस बोट के जैसी होती है। हमको इस प्लेटफॉर्म ने सहारा दिया और दिखा दिया कि ये देखो भाई, वो जो दिख रहा है ना, वो है तुम्हारा टारगेट। और उस टारगेट तक पहुंचने के लिए जो इतना बड़ा सा आपको पानी का जो दिखाई दे रहा है एरिया, अब आपको यहां से सर्च करना है। अब आप उस पानी में देखिए, अभी तक जब आप उस पानी को देख रहे थे ना, आपको कुछ भी नहीं दिखाई दे रहा था। नथिंग वाज विजिबल। नाउ जस्ट लुक सीरियसली टू द वाटर, you will see an image of that church there. देखिए तो, is this visible to you? The image of the church in the water. Can we see this?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now we started to see. और जब this is the very first step from where research starts, from where research originates. Now just look at the slide. Some famous autobiographies are there. These are the famous autobiographies. Well, the number of autobiographies are n number. Number of autobiographies are there. We are concerned with this. Being a professor, being a student, being a research scholar of English literature, and as the topic is researching biographies, so let us see the biographies. You can see list of almost I think 15 to 20 names are there with the pictures. These are some famous biographies, and as the trend has set, research scholars have started to do their research on biographies. Now they are not willing to search the new topics. They just take any great personality and they just want to go in depth, and in more depth to search something new which is not searched yet, and that's why we call it research. See, people have done already searched something. Now you are trying to research it with academic point of view. Just look at the next slide. These are some famous biographies. These are some famous biographies on which number of research work has been produced by lots of research scholars. You can see here. So now let us see. I have taken something from books, from Google, from some study material. So let us now try to understand what is researching. How can we understand researching biographies? What it means? Researching biography means an in-depth look into the lives of some fascinating figures. Why do you choose that particular person? Why do you choose that particular author for research? Because his work or her work fascinates you. The reason behind showing you the first slide, कि when you think about should be, वो जो टॉपिक है ना, और पीएचडी को लेकर जो आपका कॉन्सेप्शन है वो बहुत खूबसूरत होना चाहिए, वो कोई बोझ नहीं लगना चाहिए. आप में से किसी ने मुझे एक बताया कि सर देखिए द एटमॉस्फेयर इज वेरी नाइस. सो जब आप किसी चीज की शुरुआत एक बहुत अच्छे एटमॉस्फेयर में करते हैं, एक बहुत अच्छे मूड से करते हैं और ये सोच के करते हैं कि हाँ ये सारा एटमॉस्फेयर मेरे अनुकूल है कि मैं इस पर काम करूं, तब आप उस रिसर्च को प्रॉपरली कर पाते हैं. अदरवाइज आई एम सॉरी टू से बट मोस्ट ऑफ द प्रोफेसर्स do take the minor research projects, major research projects, even research work, and they take a long journey of 5 years, 10 years, 15 years to complete their research work. Why we take that much time? Because we are not interested in that topic. We have taken it just because we wanted the PhD degree or MRP entitlement or major project entitlement. So when you will start doing your research with a happy mood and in a proper atmosphere, then only your research will achieve the destination. So coming back to the topic, we are trying to understand that what are biographies. So researching biography means was an in-depth look into the lives of some fascinating figures. Just when we be the student of MA English, we have some famous author. We have some favorite authors, some favorite poet or novelist or dramatist or prose writer. एक आध कुछ तो दिमाग में चलते रहता है अपने. तो जब हमको ये अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलती है कि हम रिसर्च करें, तो सबसे पहले हमारे दिमाग में वही व्यक्ति आता है. अभी किसी ने मुझे कहा कि सर वो इट इज लाइक द सिनेरियो दैट वर्ड्सवर्थ क्रिएट इन हिज पोएम्स. यस. तो अगर आप उसको इस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से भी देखें, जो रॉबर्ट फ्रॉस्ट कहते हैं, द वुड्स आर लवली डार्क एंड डीप बट आई हैव प्रॉमिसेस टू कीप and miles to go before I sleep and miles to go before I sleep. तो वहां का एटमॉस्फेयर भले ही डिफरेंट हो, यहाँ का जो पहली स्लाइड का एटमॉस्फेयर है वो भी आपको वैसे ही मोटिवेट कर रहा है अपने रिसर्च के लिए, अपने टारगेट के लिए, अपने डेस्टिनेशन के लिए. The biographical method is the collection and analysis of an intensive account of a whole life or portion of a life, usually by an in-depth unstructured interview, previous research and need of the academic world. The best biographies help us to learn about contemplate the world. By reading about pivotal figures in history, we better understand the cultural context that we live in today. See, why should we choose biographies for research? The answer is this. because this is not only for your job purpose, this is also for learning something, for getting something, for understanding something. So when your aim is associated with your interest, with your learning, you will better do your work. And when you take the biography, so biography, working on biography or researching on biography itself gives you number of things. Means you will come to know what kind of great personality he or she was. Means see, you will understand one more thing here. See what a great difference between me and him or her. I am also a human being, he or she was also a human being, but in her lifespan she or he or she has done such a great work that I am researching on him. So this is not only a research journey, this will be also a life knowing journey. So the best biographies help us to learn about the contemplate the world, about and contemplate the world by reading about pivotal figures in history. We better understand the cultural context that we live in today. अच्छा, रिसेंटली एक मूवी अभी आई है पृथ्वीराज चौहान, पृथ्वीराज क्यों प्रणय, पृथ्वीराज ही नाम है ना वो मूवी का, अक्षय कुमार की. Have you seen that movie? Have you watched that movie? Anybody?
No, sir.
Will anybody respond?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet, na? But I hope you have seen Milkha Singh, Bhag Milkha Bhag.
Yes.
Yes, there are number of movies which are based on biographies, and nowadays in Bollywood, Hollywood, in every kind of food, the trend of working on biographies has started. So in this perspective also, the topic is very relevant, and we should go with this topic, and we should go to research with someone's biography. Let us see the next slide. In learning the life stories of people who have faced different challenges and circumstances than we have, we can gain a deeper understanding of others, develop more empathy, and while autobiography can lend an air of more unbiased view of a person. See what some biographers say. Biographer Richard Holmes once wrote that his work was a kind of pursuit, writing about the pursuit of the fleeting figure in such a way as to bring them alive in present. See, when you research on any biography, after completion of your PhD, you will be in a position to write your own book. Means this research will help you in two ways. One, it is completing your PhD, and second, you will be able to write a biography. In fact, it is also it is also an opportunity of job. Okay, a great biography isn't just a laundry list of events that happened to someone. Just mark this line. That when you start to read any biography, see, research starts later. First we need to read that biography, na? Then only we'll come to know which points or which things or which moments or which events or which points are important for my research work. But before that, you read the biography. So when you will read the biography, you will come to know that a biography is not just a laundry list of events that happened to someone's life. So when we see the biography of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, of Mahatma Gandhi ji, of Nehru, and many more, even of our English authors, so we see that every biography has different thing. Rather, it should weave a narrative and tell a story in all. A biography is a specialized form of history. It is an account of events based upon the example of one person's life. There are four basic types of biographies: historical fiction, academic fiction, the prophetic biography. So what kind of research is biography? Now we are coming to the topic of research. Till now I just trying to tell you what a biography is. Why should we research a biography? See, we have limited time, but even though my major intention was that all the research scholar or the PG student, I just wanted to create an interest in your mind about research and in research about biographies. Now we'll see what kind of research is biography. So biographical research is a qualitative research approach aligned to the social interpretive paradigm of research. The biographical research is concerned with the reconstruction of life, histories, and the constitution of meaning based on biographical narratives and documents. Recently, means as I have read some here, since the 1980s, biographical research gained momentum in the wake of growing interest for qualitative research, social research. Biographical research is now a recognized approach in humanities. Thus, the research approach turned to the reconstruction of biographical writing and individual life courses as a form to gain insight in life writing. Biography, we are working on biographies means we are working on life writing. Okay, after reading some biographies you will be able to write a biography also. So now we have created an interest. Now we have decided on which field we have to do our research. So if we have taken biographies for research, so now ask yourself, as a research scholar, just ask yourself, is this your right choice for research? क्या अभी तक का जो आपका अभी हम लोग डिस्कशन कर रहे हैं या जो आप अपने गाइड के साथ डिस्कस करते हैं, तो सबसे पहले ये तय करना जरूरी है, इज दिस योर राइट चॉइस फॉर रिसर्च? मतलब वो जो टॉपिक है वो सही टॉपिक है क्या जिस पर आपको रिसर्च करना है? ये जो दिखाई दे रहे हैं यहाँ पर लोग, ये सब हमारे इंडियन ऑथर्स हैं. इन दिनों मैक्सिमम जो रिसर्च हो रहा है वो इंडियन ऑथर्स पर हो रहा है, उनकी बायोग्राफीज पर हो रहा है. इवन उन लोगों पर तो हो ही रहा है जो ऊपर चले गए, उन पर भी हो रहा है जो अभी यहाँ पर काम कर रहे हैं. मेरे पास बहुत ऐसे नाम हैं. इवन पॉलिटिशियंस पर रिसर्च हो रहा है, पॉलिटिशियंस पर रिसर्च हो रहा है. आपके जो नोबेल प्राइज विनर है उन पर रिसर्च हो रहा है. फिल्म एक्टर्स पर रिसर्च हो रहा है, फिल्म इंडस्ट्री पर रिसर्च हो रहा है. रिसर्च का जो फील्ड है वो बहुत बड़ा है. सो व्हेन यू टेक एनी टॉपिक फॉर रिसर्च, just ask yourself, is this your right choice for research? I'm, dear students and dear organizers, I'm sorry to say, but I'm not going in depth. I'm just trying to show why a student or why a research scholar should research a biography, or why he should research, why he should go in research field, why should he do PhD. So being a PG student, if you are interested in research, in doing research, or if you are a research scholar and you have not yet started, so before moving ahead, before starting, just ask yourself, is this your right choice for research? I am going to take some name on which number of research work has done, and when you will visit the university library or your college library, you will see the thesis in which you will find these names. These names are very common on which research scholars do their research. R.K. Narayan, Khushwant Singh ji, Mulkraj Anand Saab, Ruskin Bond, Nirad C. Chaudhary, Arundhati Roy, Arvind, Kiran, Vikram, Amitav, Kamla Markande and Shashi Deshpande. These are the great personalities of academic world. So when you have decided to work on someone's biography, these names are going to help you. In fact, when you will visit any university library, you will see a number of research work has been done on Kiran Desai ma'am, Arvind Saab, Arundhati Roy ma'am, Niraj C Chaudhary Saab, Amitav Ghosh Saab, Kamla Markandeya, and Sashi Deshpande too. So if the answer is yes, if your answer is yes, first thing, I wish to do research. Then I have chosen my topic, and if your answer is yes, then you need to plan these three things. ये तीन चीजें आपको प्लान करना पड़ेगा. Why I am doing this, aims of the study, then what will be my method, and what will be the chapterization. ठीक है? In a very simple manner, I am trying to deliver my message, deliver my presentation, my uh, lecture to you, and the only aim behind this lecture is take a correct topic for your research. So when you have gone through this process, and if your answer is yes, now you are in the position to plan. So three things you need to plan: aims of the study, methodology, क्या methodology आप लेना चाहते हैं, और क्या chapterization होगा. Okay, so now we have decided कि I have to do biographical research. So just look at the biographical research. Biographical research in education may be conceived in many different ways. However, typically the topic constitutes the study of a single life, focusing primarily upon an individual who in some way is affiliated with the professional field of education. Other research methodologies are often bundled within the descriptor of biography and include life history writing, oral history, memoir, autobiography, and life narratives. So when we have decided everything, so now we need to chapterize it. The first chapter, it may be like, I have just taken for example, your chapterization may be different. The current state of life writing and the democratization of biography. Second, biography as mythology. Your fourth chapter may be reading biographies and the right of reply. So when you take the biography of any person for research, the chapterization may be different, definitely different, because these lines are common lines, and the last chapter will be of conclusion. So basically our research work goes through these 5 chapters. So now एक रिसर्च स्कॉलर के रूप में जब मैंने ये तय कर लिया कि मुझे रिसर्च करनी है, मैंने अपने गाइड को चुन लिया. गाइड ने मुझे टॉपिक चुनने में हेल्प कर दी. मेरी स्थिति उस बोट के जैसी थी. जब गाइड ने मुझे यस कह दिया तो मेरी वो जो बोट है अब वहां से चलना शुरू हो गई. एक रिसर्च स्कॉलर वहां से चलना शुरू कर दिया उसने, और जब वो उस अथाह समुद्र में पहुंचता है तो उसको बहुत सारी चीजें मिलती है अपने टॉपिक से रिलेटेड, और जब वो सारी चीजों को प्रॉपर चैप्टराइज्ड करता है इंट्रोडक्शन से लेकर कंक्लूजन तक, तो फिर वो अपने लक्ष्य तक पहुंच जाता है. सो जब आपने ये तय कर लिया है कि मुझे बायोग्राफी पर रिसर्च करना है, आपके गाइड से आपने फाइनलाइज कर लिया है, अब आपको एक चीज ये देखनी पड़ेगी, जब आप सारा मटेरियल कलेक्ट कर लेते हैं, चैप्टराइजेशन कर लेते हैं कि मुझे किस मेथड से चलना पड़ेगा, क्या मेरी लिमिटेशंस होगी, और ये सारी चीजें आप प्लान करते हैं किसके साथ, आपके रिसर्च सुपरवाइजर के साथ. मैं आपको इस चीज में कुछ नया बताऊं, इससे ज्यादा अच्छा है कि आप अपने उस रिसर्च स्कॉलर के साथ बैठकर इसको प्लान करिए कि मेरी रिसर्च की जर्नी कैसे होगी. All the very best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving us this practical knowledge to all our PG students as well as research scholars. They are going to be benefited definitely in their PhD journey and complete their PhD award degree. Yes, sir. Over to Monica.
Yes, ma'am. Sir, you truly made this day enlightening for us. Your deep and intellectual way of imparting knowledge has added the glory to this event. Sir has given a new insight and inspired us all to take up biographies as a research topics. And he has also showed us pathway how to plan. Like he told us about three steps: aim of the study, methodology, and then chapterization. I'm sure that this session is going to help many researchers to choose the correct topic for their research. Sir, to be honest, your session didn't feel like a lecture. It felt more like you were mentoring us. You really were so good, and we felt like we are getting the guidance from you rather than getting any lecture. So
Yes.
that was yes, sir. And sir, truly, we have no words to offer gratitude for your valuable presence here. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
If there are any queries from the
Please.
participants, they are welcome. They can unmute themselves and ask their queries to sir.
Sorry to disturb you, ma'am. Maybe the lecture was beyond your expectations. Means when we write researching biographies, means we just imagine कि यार वहां पर बहुत सारी स्लाइड्स होगी, फिर उसका क्या हाइपोथेसिस होगा, किस पर रिसर्च हुआ, कैसे हुआ, ये सारी चीजें होगी. बट मेरा जो उसके पीछे इंटेंशन था वो ये था कि मैं, चाहे वो पीजी का स्टूडेंट हो चाहे रिसर्च स्कॉलर हो, क्योंकि रिसर्च तो आपको करना है. अभी हम रिसर्च कर चुके हैं, हम सभी प्रोफेसर्स रिसर्च कर चुके हैं, आप लोगों को करवा रहे हैं. सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है आपके अंदर उस इंटरेस्ट का डेवलप होना. आपकी वो जो रिसर्च जर्नी है उसकी शुरुआत इतनी अच्छी होनी चाहिए. अदरवाइज आई एम सॉरी टू टेल यू ऑल कि some of my friends have left doing their research work as मतलब वो इतने ज्यादा टॉर्चर्ड हो गए, ज्यादा परेशान हो गए कि उन लोगों ने ना बीच में रिसर्च करना छोड़ दिया. उसके पीछे रीजन ये था कि आपके सुपरवाइजर का कुछ अलग होता है. वो जो रिसर्च स्कॉलर और ही करता है, और जब वो अपना वर्क लेकर अपने रिसर्च गाइड के पास जाता है तो उसके हिसाब से होता ही नहीं है बिल्कुल. रिसर्च गाइड क्या करते हैं, बिल्कुल उन लाइंस को काट देते हैं, चैप्टर्स को रिजेक्ट कर देते हैं, फेंक देते हैं कि चलो ये क्या करके लाए हो तुम, क्या बकवास है ये. इसीलिए सबसे पहले हम एक अच्छे रिसर्च स्कॉलर को एक सही टॉपिक चुनना चाहिए जिसमें उसका इंटरेस्ट हो, जिसमें वो वर्क कर सके. बिकॉज रिसर्च वर्क एक रिसर्च पेपर तक लिमिटेड नहीं है. ये अगर आप थीसिस लिखना चाह रहे हैं, पीएचडी करना चाह रहे हैं, तो यू नीड टू राइट अबाउट 250 to 300 पेजेस. जिन पेजेस को लिखने में आपका इंटरेस्ट ही नहीं है, उन पेजेस को आप लिखेंगे कैसे? फिर तो ये होगा कि इधर से लिया उधर से लिया, फिर उसको पढ़ा रटा और बोल दिया. बट इफ यू चूज द टॉपिक विथ योर इंटरेस्ट, सो यू विल डेफिनेटली गोइंग टू डू द डिफरेंट वर्क. आपका जो रिसर्च वर्क होगा ना, डेफिनेटली डिफरेंट होगा, क्योंकि वो आपके इंटरेस्ट का होगा. यस, इफ यू हैव एनी क्वेश्चन, सो आई एम हियर टू आंसर. कितना बचता? 2.
So there are several appreciation messages in the message box, and one of the participant wants to have your email ID as well, so that you can be contacted.
My email ID is very simple: sanesar, SANESAR @gmail.com, and my mobile number is 7000419442.
So
The
kind of
research scholars are free to call me anytime, but please call me after 15th of July, because nowadays I am very much engaged with election duties. I am state level master trainer of election. Between this lecture, I have See, number of calls were there. Collector sir has called me, additional collector, SDM, number of tehsildars, because they are working as a returning officer. So I will be in a position to help you after 15th of July. So thank you so much from my side, and thanks a lot for inviting me and giving this honor. Ji, Anita ma'am is saying something.
Thank you, Sanisa sir, for giving your valuable views on research. And सबसे अच्छा तो आपने बहुत अच्छा गाया भी.
Indeed, उसकी बात ही नहीं हो पाई.
Saying, no, ma'am, that's why I'm saying it should not be a bombastic thing, you know. If I'm doing something, it should be done by heart. जिस चीज में आपका दिल लगता है उसमें दिमाग बहुत अच्छे से लगता है, और जिसमें सिर्फ दिमाग लगता है उसमें दिल जो है उसको रिस्पॉन्ड नहीं करता है, और चीजें फिर बिगड़ जाती है.
Very true, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I'm really feeling honored to get this opportunity to talk with the great esteemed personalities. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Now, please allow me to left.
Thank you so much, sir. That in such a busy schedule, also you spared time for us to be as our gracious guest. Thank you so much, sir. And we will be having more opportunities to hear you at some other time in some other conference. Thank you so much.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
I would like to thank all the participants for being here and listening patiently to our esteemed guest speakers. We will be ending this session now, and we will meet tomorrow at 11 a.m. Tomorrow will be the last day, so we will be having valedictory session after the lectures of two guest speakers. So thanks to all once again. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a great day.
Yes. Manjri, you want to say something?
Yes, ma'am. Feedback link will be will be shared with you in your email IDs.
Yes. You can fill up the feedback links. Check your email IDs, please. Thank you once again.